Hello, welcome to the first ever and probably last podcast type of video. It's not really a podcast, it's just kind of us rambling. Welcome to Chris and Cathy's Captivating Christian Corner, crossing over our two shows. And with me is my good friend Cathy O'Lic.
Hello, everyone.
Cathy has her own show called Cathy's Christian Corner, and I obviously have Captivating Christian, so we decided to combine these two. A show called Impastor, which lasted 2 seasons on TV Land. So, okay, Cathy, what is the premise of the show? And then we'll talk about the pilot episode we watched, titled Genesis.
Basically, for those who are unfamiliar with the show, Impastor is about this guy named Buddy who steals this other person's identity and becomes a pastor in this suburban neighborhood in the middle of nowhere and apparently fools everyone.
Yes, okay.
That's pretty much it.
Pretty much, yes. So, the first episode we watched is Genesis. That's the title. Like you said, Buddy is a lowlife from New York City. Ha, a New York City joke.
Yeah, New Yorkers.
So he steals a man's identity after he threatens to throw himself off the Brooklyn Bridge, but the man ends up trying to stop him, but then he accidentally falls in and dies. So Buddy takes this man's identity and drives down to this town that he lives in, and it's a very podunk, it reminds me of Mayberry from the Andy Griffith Show. Very small town, but it's very, very religious.
Yeah, a small town where everybody knows everyone and knows about everybody else's business except their own.
So Buddy goes to this town pretending to be this man, and does he live with this woman? Or because they say that she's his secretary. Does he live with her?
She probably, since I guess it's implied in the show that she has a huge crush on the Impastor, so why not?
Woman who looks like Sarah Palin. Then he's met up with the other 3 people who work at this church because the man he's stealing the identity from. I want to highlight that because that's a key part of the show. In fact, as soon as Buddy does this, he is trying to crack into this guy's computer when he gets to this house that he's staying at, and he not only says, "Well, sorry, pal, you had a good life," the next word out of his mouth is, "Now how do I get your money?" I know we're probably not supposed to like Buddy, or at least probably in an anti-hero sense, but he's not very likable.
No, even from the get-go in his first scene.
And he's a lowlife, and obviously lowlives can redeem themselves. That's what, there are stories that show that a person can change their ways, but I'm not convinced that Buddy will in the slightest. I mean, he steals, he lies, the whole premise of the show is that he lies and covers it up, and he pretends to be a man of God. That's just all kinds of wrong. He does drugs, as you'll see. He does a little marijuanal. He pretends to be this man who turns out to be a pastor in this town. We see the other 3 people. We see the church president, blonde woman who's obviously fawning for him, and this other flamboyant man who has a crush on him. And this comes into play because apparently Buddy's new identity is a gay pastor.
Yep.
I don't know about you, but this reminds me of that movie called I Now Pronounce You Chuck and Larry. Stress Viewer, before he died, reviewed it years ago. Link in description if you want to see that review.
I want to disclose something very quickly. We have no problem with homosexual pastors. It's just the way that this show executed it is questionable.
That one guy is very flamboyant and annoying. Not because he's gay, just because he's just a terribly written character. So, past this point, we get 2 scenes of Buddy pretending to be a pastor and interacting with these 2 people in the town. One is a mother, and I think I was so bored by this episode. I'm going to disclose that. The reason I didn't like it was, obviously I had moral objections with it, but I was just bored with this episode. Nothing was interesting me at all. I didn't like any of the characters. But anyway, so the 2 people, one's a mother, and then one guy knows a couple in the town who are having financial trouble, and it's affecting their marriage. And so these people come to Buddy for help. And here's the joke, that Buddy is not a real pastor, so obviously he doesn't know what he's doing. The woman says that she has a terrible son and that he ditches school. He's a bad kid. He always mouths off to her. He apparently has relations with Cantaloupe, which I'm just going to throw this in there. Pineapple's better. I know from experience. Swigga always gives me grief because of that. Fucking pineapple fucker. Oh, let's just go get the pizza already. Jeez. Yeah, man, we better make sure we don't get some pineapple pizza. You know what I'm saying? No,
I'll pray for you.
Character break. Then we get the subplot about these two cops who are supposed to be looking for Buddy because his friend, lover, I don't know who this woman was, but apparently she sends a search party with these two bumbling cops, one of which who looks like Charlie Sheen. They go out of their way to go looking for him. So I'm assuming that plays into the overall plot of the show, in later episodes.
And I guess it's good cop, bad cop, except it's good cop and stupid idiot moron partner.
And apparently, like you said earlier, everyone in this town is just incredibly naive and just lets the pastor get away with anything. Because, okay, there's a part where he's in a grocery store and she's like, oh, sorry, we can't, just give stuff unless you have photo ID, because he doesn't have the proper ID of the man that he's ripping off. But then a blonde woman who works at church is like, oh, no, he's the pastor, he's okay. Oh, okay. And he just gets away with, buying all this stuff with this guy's credit card. This town must be very podunk if they actually allow that kind of stuff. Because I don't even think politicians can get away with that kind of thing. I'm pretty sure they still have to pay for stuff when they're at a grocery store. And then we get the one good part of this episode in that Buddy actually mouths off to this child who's giving his mother grief and, tells him off what for. And that was the only good part because it showed that Buddy actually does have some humanity. And even though what he's saying is incredibly crass, I thought that it was a good way to stand up and actually, stand up for another person, that being the mother who was getting a ton of grief from her spoiled son.
Yes, I do agree. That is the only good scene in this episode.
And then the episode ends with him actually cracking this man's password, and he gets all the money that's in this guy's account. But he decides, you know what, I'm going to stay here and pretend to be a pastor for this place while these policemen are looking out for him. And that's the end of the pilot. And really, okay, you go first, because you clearly didn't like this more than I did.
Now, where to begin? Well, there's the whole part of Buddy being chased around by these drug dealers whom apparently he owes money to. That's why he's on the run in the first place. And decided, you know what, I'm going to jump off a bridge.
The Brooklyn Bridge.
Well, the Virginia Bridge, I think, not the Brooklyn Bridge. I don't think it was in New York. Unless it was. I don't know. I could care less. This is like an insult to Christianity, just in general.
Yeah, and
because you wouldn't do half the thing. You wouldn't steal someone's car. I mean, you're breaking a commandment right there. Thou shalt not steal.
And we get it that he's not supposed to be a Christian, that he's probably supposed to learn how to be a better person, throughout the course of the show, but it's just a tough beginning to sit through.
Now, for those who may not know, the actor who plays Buddy,
who looks a lot like one of Comedy Central's late-night liberal comedian hosts.
For those of you who are fans of Smallville, the actor who played Buddy played Lex Luthor. Because I'm watching it, and I'm going, why does he look so familiar? So I Google his name, and there pops up Smallville, and I'm going, oh, so it's Lex Luthor with hair.
I guess I can give my final thoughts. I've seen worse. I mean, I know you absolutely hated it, but I've watched Mr. Pickles, I've watched Pope Town, I've seen Santa Claus versus the Devil, I've seen way worse things than this. With that said, and who knows, maybe the show gets better after this first episode, and maybe we're just not seeing it, but this first episode was just boring to sit through, and the main character's just not that likable, and the rest of the town are just morons for just blindly, believing him. I don't know. I found it just boring.
I agree, and the only divine intervention was Chris and I had to watch this online, so we had to sit through ads.
Yeah.
That was a
Oh, yeah,
nice
that helped.
break.
Thanks, Television
That
Land.
helped. And the ironic thing is, the Bible story that's also named Genesis is way more entertaining than this first episode.
Preach, sister. Cathy's channel is in the description. She also works with Shannon Reviews. Give a thanks to Shannon, Cathy.
I will when I see her.
Awesome. And look forward to upcoming Captivating Christian and other videos from me, Chris T. Ian, on this channel. We will see you guys next time, and may Jesus be with you.
And also with you.